On this episode of Living with a Classic, I'll show you how to check valve clearance on the Jaguar XK engine. Welcome back to Living with a Classic, and if you're new to my channel, hope that you stick around and consider subscribing. I put new videos every week on some Jaguar and classic car related content. So you can go to my channel down below, and while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification and you won't miss any updates. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to check and set the valve clearance on the Jaguar XK engine, that classic straight six that was used all the way from 1949 up until about 1987, and a bit longer in some other forms in the military, but in Jaguar cars, that's about how long they were used. So the instructions are valid for a lot of different models of Jaguar and a lot of different years. The valve clearance setting might be a little different for some of the years. I will be doing this on that car over there, that green 1975 XJ6. I'm dismantling the engine right now because of a blown head gasket, so I have the head on the bench, which will make it really easy to show how to do this. It can of course be done, and it probably should be done most likely with the engine in the car and all back together. But for demonstration purposes, it's really easy with the engine apart. So let's head on over to my workbench and I'll show you the head, and I'll show you the tools you'll need and how to check and set the valve clearance. Here are the tools you'll need to complete the job. You need a set of spanners, various sizes, for getting the valve covers off, getting the cam sprockets off, and also for getting the top half of the bearings off for the camshafts. You'll also need a set of feeler gauges. Some type of magnet to pick things up with is a good tool to have. You need a large socket for the front of the engine to turn the engine over. It's different for different years of the engines, but get one that fits yours. You'll need some type of rubber or like this weighted plastic rubber mallet to knock things loose, such as the valve covers, and also later the top halves of the bearings for the camshafts. Some pen and paper is also good to jot down what the measurements are. Here's the cylinder head off my 1975 XJ6. It's a 4.2. The reason the cylinder head is on the bench is because I blew a head gasket and I've just taken it off. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link to it up above where I show you how to remove a cylinder head on one of these engines. So now I'm checking the valve clearance before I disassemble everything, because I'm going to clean up the head, check if it's warped or not, and see if it needs any work before I get ready to put everything back together. So I'm checking the valve clearances just to make sure that they are correct. It's very important that they are within spec. On this engine, it's supposed to be between 0.012 and 0.014 inches. If it's a little bit more than that, it's okay. It might just be a little bit more tappy, a little bit noisy. However, if it's less than 0.012, you'll get in some trouble. You don't want your valves to be too tight. So I have removed one of the camshafts, as you might see is missing. It's just because I have everything off the car. If you have it in the car, you will check your valve clearances by just turning the engine over with the cam chain and everything still on the car. But because I have it off the car, you can't just turn one camshaft, because then your valves will bump into each other and you might damage them. So I'm going to start checking valves now, and I'll show you how to check the clearance. So what you're checking when you're checking your valve clearance or your tappets, the distance from the back of the cam lobe down to here. So this is a closed valve. That's an open one right there. That one's going to open pretty soon. So get a feeler gauge and see if you can get it in there. This is 0.010. That goes in there nicely. Slight bit of drag, but goes in there. One size up is 0.012. And I cannot get that in there. You're not supposed to force it. You're just supposed to check that you can get it in there nicely and it's not too loose, that there's a little bit of drag. So I'm going to note down for this one, this is cylinder 4, that it's 0.010. Before I go on, I'm going to see if there's any others that are closed. For instance, here, cylinder 2 is also closed. So I'm going to try the same thing, 0.010. Goes in there nicely. One size up, 0.012. Does not go in there at all. So I'm going to note down the same for that one, 0.010. If you're checking this normally with the cylinder head on the car, also check the exhaust cam at the same time, because you probably have some closed valves over there as well. when you've taken the measurements of all the closed valves, rotate the engine over, and then you get some new valves that are closed. You can check those. So I'm going to do that now. However, I'm just going to rotate the camshafts over here. So rotating it just a little bit. So now I can check number 6 here. Same, first try the smaller one, goes in there nicely. Next size up, same thing, does not go in there. So we note down 0.010. So far the valves have been too tight on this engine. I'm going to check the rest of them, and then I'll show you what you need to do if you need to change the valve clearance if they are too tight or too loose on your engine. I checked the rest of them, and here are the results. As you can see, they're all 0.010. They're all even, and they're all too tight. So I removed the camshaft so I can show the next thing. So if you check your valve clearances, so they're all either too tight or too big and they're wrong, or some of them are wrong, you will need to remove the camshaft in order to do the next step. If you have the engine in the car, you will need to remove the cam sprockets. I have a video where I showed how to remove all of that on one of these engines. I'll put a link to that up above. You can check that out. But since I just had it on the bench here, I just removed the camshaft here. And I'm going to show you what the next step is. Before I show the next thing, just a really quick important tip. When you remove the top half of the bearings here, it's very important that you note where they came off and you put them back in the same direction. You don't turn them around, and you put back the same one where it came off. So this one came off here. I'm not going to put it back anywhere else. It came off here. That's very important. So now this is where your little magnet tool comes in handy. Just pick up this one. For instance, we'll start on cylinder 2. In here, you have the top of the valve spring right there. And right in here, you can see that little shim. It's supposed to sit down in there, but they usually get stuck up in here. But you can just get it out. So here's what controls your valve clearance or your tappet clearance on these engines. These little shims here. So since all of mine were too tight, I will need to make this space between here and the back of the camshaft a little bigger. So this needs to go down further. So I will need a smaller shim. So you can measure your shims, check how thick they are, and then get a size smaller or 2 sizes smaller, or a size bigger or 2 sizes bigger, whatever you'll need to get the engine back. I recommend that you measure all the shims that you have, especially on an engine of this age, because maybe you can get away with just moving around some of the shims and get everything working correctly. If you can't do that, you'll have to order new shims. They usually come in a pack of almost every single size. However, if you're just a normal home mechanic, you won't really need that. So I will contact a local shop that works on these cars, and they usually have all these shims. They have hundreds of them. So just measure out which ones you'll need and write that down and go contact your shop, and you'll probably be able to buy the shims off them for not very much at all. Once you've figured out what the correct shims are and you put the correct ones in and everything is back, you need to put the camshafts back in and check the valve clearances once again. If you're happy with all of that, put your engine back together and it should be good for many more years. And that's it. That's how you check and set the valve clearance or tappets on the Jaguar XK engine. It's pretty straightforward. It's just a little time consuming, and you will need to get your hands on some shims if you need to adjust them. If you're doing a restoration or a partial rebuild like I'm doing, it's really good to check the valve clearance in the beginning of the restoration, because that way you'll know what size of shims you'll need, and you'll have time to order them, because I'm going to order all the parts I'll need for the restoration, and I can order the right shims at the same time. I checked the exhaust side as well off camera, and they'll all need to be re-shimmed also. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this video. Was it helpful? Was it useful for you? What other things would you like to see on the XK engine on that Jag? If you haven't checked out the other videos, there's a link to them down below. You can check out the whole playlist or all the specific videos on that XJ6 restoration. So until next time, I'm Adam, and this was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.